Hello and welcome to News Central Television. I am Lekon Onobanjo. The top stories at this hour. Telecoms Workers Union rejects NLC's planned protest over 50% tariff hike. Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform says proposed bill will curb inflation. Mine collapse kills at least 12, several others missing in Mali. Details to come your way shortly. Let's begin by telling you that the Private Telecommunications and Communications Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, PTECSAN, has rejected the planned nationwide protest by the Nigeria Labour Congress over the recently approved 50% increase in telecoms tariff. PTECSAN, in a letter addressed to the NLC leadership, argued that the tariff hike, though painful, is necessary to prevent the imminent collapse of the sector. The NLC had earlier rejected the tariff increase, describing it as an additional burden on Nigerians already grappling with rising costs of living. The Labour Union directed its affiliate unions to mobilize members for a protest scheduled for February 4, 2025. However, PTECSAN, which represents workers in the telecom sector, expressed disappointment that the NLC took the decision without consulting it. To discuss this, we are joined by a public affairs analyst, Moses Idika. Mr. Idika, good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us on the news.
Yeah, good evening.
Okay, so telcos say that a hike is necessary to improve infrastructure and service delivery and to prevent the imminent collapse of the sector. Are those reasons valid enough?
Well, it's quite unfortunate. However, when you look at the parameters on which they are operating from, you find out that the increase is actually inevitable. I'm not speaking for the telcos, and I'm not speaking for NLC, but if you look at what is going on, every telecom company in Nigeria is run on diesel. There is no public power supply to subsidize their cost of energy. When you look at that, you find out that it's obviously inevitable because every single station of any of the telcos is run on diesel. None of them is relying on public power supply. And when you look also, when you look at the equipment with which they work with, they are not locally manufactured. Most of them import from outside Nigeria, and we know what the Forex is talking now. A dollar is close to, it's about 2,000 naira today. So when you look at all this, you find out that the telcos are themselves struggling. And it's unfortunate. I think NLC should be directing their anger at the federal government of Nigeria because the environment in which all these telcos operate is very, very, very daunting. They provide security for themselves. They provide electricity for themselves. They provide water. And of course, they have to pay their workers. And they have to upgrade to be at par with other operators outside the country. So it's a difficult situation. I think that there should be some form of negotiation between the telcos and the NLC, the workers there, the operators. Let there be behind the scene negotiation. Maybe they can further reduce the percentage of increase. But from all indication, it is obvious that the increase is inevitable.
Well, the NLC proposed 5%, and some people have said that that is a good place to start, but it seems as though telecom operators are not willing to toe that line. Do you think that could actually, be a better way to hike the price at this point, looking at the inflationary pressures and the cost of living crisis?
Well, you see that the telcos, they are even humane in the way they are going about it. Our own government wake up every day and things just increase. Electricity tariff has increased. Petroleum product prices seriously increased. And it just happens. Nobody wants us. But we heard that Nigerian Communication Commission negotiated on behalf of the federal government with the telcos, and I'm not even sure they have started the implementation of the 50% hike in their tariff. But I think that there's always room for negotiation instead of picketing or forcing them out. If the telcos decide to down tools, it's going to, the effects on our economy, on the people, is going to be very, very, very dire. So I think that the NLC should have a jaw with these people so that we don't have to further, worsen the situation Nigerians have found themselves today.
Well, Moses, earlier on you talked about the fact that the fuel price or price of diesel has skyrocketed, and these companies would be the one to actually fuel the cost of production or, of course, their services. We've also seen astronomical rise in operational costs. We've seen hike in electricity tariffs, and all these as a result of government policies. Now, some Nigerians are saying that this administration should bear the hike burden and not even the businesses or the consumers, before we even start talking about dialogue. Do you agree?
I agree to some extent, because based on what is going on, these companies, you also know that they pay all manner of taxes. They pay to local government, they pay to state, they pay to federal government. Even to import their equipment, they pay taxes on those equipment. So I think that what the NLC should be doing is to perhaps see how the tax burden on these telcos can be reduced so that it can further drive down the cost of their services to the Nigerian public. But if we face the telecom companies, we all know that they are private operators and they can decide to look elsewhere. What if they decide to operate from Ghana or from any other places and now sell their products in Nigeria? Those are possibilities. We've seen several companies leave Nigeria to some other West African countries, and we still use their products in Nigeria.
But Nigeria is a big market.
The problem is the group.
Nigeria is a big market. You think they would want to, leave such a market like that, looking at the sensitivity of the kind of service they provide?
No, Nigeria is a key market anywhere in the world. You can't be talking about close to 300 million people, and you can't joke with such that kind of market. But what we are saying is that the government should create an enabling environment whereby businesses can be profitable. When businesses are profitable, more investors will come, and then there will be employment for people, and then generally Nigeria becomes richer and the economy becomes more buoyant. But you look at the current government is so tax crazy. They are taxing everybody. They are increasing taxes, yet the services that the government is supposed to provide is not providing it. Like we are talking about the telecom companies. This is perhaps one of the few countries where the telecom companies provide every single thing they need to work with, including the basics like electricity, like security, like power. It's a very serious situation. So I think that what we are getting from the telecom companies is a rub-off of the environment in which they are operating from. And I think that the NLC, nobody understands the economy of Nigeria more than the NLC. They know exactly what to do. It is not about the telecom company. It is about their operating environment. It is about their cost of operation.
All right, thank you so much, Moses Idika, public affairs analyst, for sharing your thoughts with us on the news.
Thank you very much.
Of course, you're welcome. Let's now look at the proposed tax reform bills. The chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms, Taiwo Oyedele, says the proposed tax reform bills by the Bola Tinubu administration will help curb inflation by reducing costs for most households. Oyedele also dismissed criticism that the plan could exacerbate economic hardship in Africa's most populous nation. After scrapping a costly petrol subsidy and devaluing the currency twice in his first year in office, President Bola Tinubu has now turned his focus to tax system reforms. While these measures have contributed to rising prices, His administration aims to bring inflation down to 15% this year from 34.8% in December. The presidential aide also defended the plan to nearly double the value-added tax to 12.5% by 2026, insisting that it is a necessary step towards economic stability. Earlier, economic analyst Ola Olukoyede shared his thoughts on this.
Saw a very tall order from the projection of reducing the inflation from 34% to about 15%. And if you look at the mechanism put together by the Fiscal Policy Committee, it's something that should work. But you know, my fear most of the time is we have fantastic policy in place. When it comes to implementation, you see people, cutting short some of these areas, and you won't see the visibility of it. We've had a lot of brilliant ideas. A lot of us supported the issue of fuel subsidy with the aim that it will balance up things, whereas it resulted to the implementation was actually wrong. If you look at the issue of devaluation of currency, some of us were against it, but then there was superior, argument or need, it was the value. Where has it taken us to as we speak? So this might look very interesting on paper to say that, one, the mechanism they've actually put in place by making sure that you increase the slot of the normal people that should pay taxes. I'm sure you know if this is passed into bill, the catchment area of paying taxes will be about 1 million. Those are 1 million per annum, which has given room for the minimum wages to be excluded from paying taxes. There are a lot of reliefs that are actually given to lessen the burden. And also, you've seen a lot of products being exempted from it. I don't have idea with some of those things because we've seen a lot of laudable policies like this, that when the time of implementation comes, even the people that initiate or originate the policy themselves, they get confused at the middle of it, and that is my worry. How much monitoring have we actually put in place to make sure that we have a walkthrough, either at the federal, at the state, and at the local government, the implementation of certain things we've seen in play? Because the major area I'm going to have problem is, the suggestion made by the committee in the area of sharing this VAT is against what the NGF are actually saying. If we don't have a common ground there, your projection for the chairman might be that 60-20-20 will bring things, balance things up. But we're already talking of 50-30-20 as against the 50-20-30 that we had beforehand. Where do we have a common ground to make sure that because the equity, so many people still consider it as a challenge. So I don't have problem on paper, even aside the tax policy, a lot of fantastic policy that we have currently, but in terms of implementation, we don't have a walkthrough. You get to the middle of it and people backed out, and it becomes a rhetorics that people will just be reading in the papers.
And away from that, to the aviation sector, the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority has revoked the air operator certificates of East Wind Aviation Logistics Services Limited and Omni Blue Aviation, announcing the decision on its official X handle. The NCAA said the move is part of ongoing efforts to enhance safety and regulatory compliance in the aviation sector. The regulator cited violations of Part 1215 of the Nigerian Civil Aviation Regulations, which prohibits the falsification, reproduction, or alteration of applications, licenses, certificates, logbooks, reports, or records. In October, an East Wind Aviation-operated helicopter crash-landed in the Atlantic Ocean with 8 persons on board, raising further concerns about safety and operational integrity within the sector. Away from that, governors from the Lake Chad Basin countries have agreed to boost the operational capacity of the multinational joint task force and ensure full occupation of Lake Chad's islands to eliminate remnants of terrorists and their hideouts. This decision, among other resolutions, were reached at the 5th Lake Chad Governors Forum held in Maiduguri, the Borno state capital. Umar Kirawa was there for News Central.
Terrorist groups have used remote Lake Chad islands as strongholds, launching attacks across borders. Regional stakeholders resolved to call for military forces to secure the islands and clear remnants of the terrorists in the region at the 5th Lectured Governors Forum in Maiduguri.
While we are putting our efforts on the unfortunate incident and accident of Boko Haram, at the same time, we should not forget to continue with the efforts so that the Lake Chad can be recharged.
Officials stress the importance of job creation, education, and social initiatives to prevent radicalization.
We should be careful by relying on international or partner support, because security situation is a self-help situation that do not waste time by anticipating a security and a logistic support from a third party.
We advocate, of course we provide technical support, we provide capacity building, but the most important is the role that is central of the governments.
This situation negatively impacts the sexual reproductive health services, family planning, maternal mortality, gender-based violence, and young and people situation.
Yobe State Governor Maimala Buni emerged as the chairman of the forum for the next 2 years.
With justice done to the theme of the meeting, rebuilding the Lake Chad Basin, consolidating gains, commitment to peace, cross-border cooperation, security and sustainable development for a resilient community. It is my hope, as the host governor, that we will internalize, domesticate, and act on the lessons and resolution of this meeting to move forward from discussion to an all-inclusive action-packed implementation that ensures everyone is carried along for the growth and development of the region.
Enhance civil society organization and traditional institution engagement in regional stability, as well as updating and facilitating implementation of the territorial action plans formed part of resolution. Also, the forum agrees that the next meeting of the Governors Forum shall take place in 2026 in the Republic of Niger. In Maiduguri for News Central, Omar Kirawa.
We now go on a break on the news. When we return, group condemns activist Showere's action against the Inspector General of Police, says accusations are baseless. We will tell you more when we are back. So stay with us. Reactions have trailed the announcements by the Police Service Commission that senior police officers who have either spent over 35 years in service or above 60 years of age should immediately retire. This decision was reached during the Commission's first extraordinary meeting for 2025, presided over by its chairman, retired Deputy Inspector General Hashimu Argungu. The meeting was attended by key officials, including retired Supreme Court Justice Adamu Galumje, DIG Taiwo Lakano, retired, and Commission Secretary Chief Onyemuchi Namani. A statement by the Commission spokesperson Ikechukwu Ani highlighted that this move aligns with the public service rule, which mandates retirement upon the completion of 35 years in service or the attainment of 60 years of age. And now to discuss this, we are joined by the Executive Director, Transparency and Accountability Network, Oluwole Oladapo. Thank you so much, Mr. Oladapo, for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Good evening.
So I'd like to get your thoughts. The public service rule actually, of course, is something that has to be adhered to when you talk about senior police personnel, but not the position of the Inspector General of Police. How do you see that rule?
You see, thank you very much. You see, before now, we have all dwelt on the public service rules, which we all know talked about, the age of retirement or the year of service. Once you are 35 years in service, or you attain the age of 60. That's the way it is in public service rules, and it still holds, except for some, some specialized public service office like the judiciary, where the age of judges have now been moved from 60 to 70. It used to be 70 for appeal court judges and Supreme Court judges, but now it has become same for all judges of high courts in Nigeria. And in 2020, too. That of the Inspector General of Police was also done, which was like made almost like a political office. And if you look at it to some extent, it is almost like a political office, which requires that the nominee for the office by the president would have to go before the Senate for confirmation after has been appointed in acting capacity. So, you see, it's rather unfortunate that as Nigerians we have found ourselves in this situation. And as activists and public commentators on issues, one of the things that I think we did was to have been docile when in 2020, under the immediate past president of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, the amendment to the Police Act was done so as to allow the president to be able to appoint whoever he deems fit into the office of the Inspector General of Police. And that job has been settled. It is unfortunate that it is generating furore now, but it is late. And that's the reality of things as it stands.
But then I'd like to find out, what is the rationale behind having such rule, an exemption for the IGP. Is there a direct or an indirect benefit to have that come into play, that amendment of the Police Act whereby the IGP can stay in office for 4 years, but then it is still under the same public service rule? So why should there be an exemption? Is there benefits?
Thank you very much. You see, the law is good and the law is clear. The truth is, in the public service, promotion ends at a particular stage. For the police, promotion within the service ends at the rank of Deputy Inspector General of Police. That is not by appointment. That is by promotion. The office of the Inspector General of Police, even before the law was amended in 2020, had not been by promotion. It's not been by public service rules. So I think what the law did in 2020 was to put a lot of things into perspective. Whether it was morally sound or not is another issue for another day. And that is where it has been. So I think what they're trying to do is to seek law to be able to actually explain that an office for which you cannot be promoted but appointed has almost become political. And if we look at it, the benefits are two for the system. There is a benefit for Nigeria and the system. There's also a benefit for the current political office holder who would have to shop for a competent, experience, and more importantly, a loyal person who he thinks might want to carry out his own agenda for the nation. It is rather very unfortunate, but if we are going to address this issue, we will have to go back to our laws. And the laws will have to address the fact that the office of the IG should be by promotion and not by appointment. As long as it remains by appointment by the president in acting capacity, subject to confirmation by the National Assembly, it has become a political office. So, and that's where the conundrum has been all the while.
So basically what you're saying, sir, what you're saying now is that once the president, of course, has that prerogative to appoint someone to be in that sensitive position, it's in violation of the constitution of the country.
It is not in violation as it stands now. As it stands now, it's not in violation.
But you said according to the constitution or the law that appointments to the seat or the position of the IGP should be by promotion, if I did get you correctly.
That's why I said, but currently what the constitution supports is appointment by the helmsman. That's what it supports now. So that's why I said it is not in violation. But when we look at the morality of it, which is generating the furore now, we would have to go back to the constitution to allow, that's what I'm saying. I'm talking about in retrospect now. I'm speaking futuristically on what can be done. The current position where agitations are now being held that should not be done is against the law. So the argument is from the point of morals and morality that, well, it might not encourage performance by officers in the Nigerian police force, knowing full well that they might not attain. But of course, it is only one person that will attain in the lifetime of a particular group of people. And in a particular set of police officers, no one might even attain to the position of IG. And that's why the president can decide to appoint. Once you attain the rank of an AIG, he can appoint you and retire everybody before you, or except those ones are ready to serve their junior, even when their time is not, when their retirement time or year of completion of service is not up. But that will not encourage the force. Somebody is an AIG, you bring him up above the IGs to come and be IG. The law permits that. The president has the prerogative to appoint anyone, any senior police officer, into the position of the IG. So that's why I said the law as it stands will have to be looked at. But currently, the president is not doing anything that is against the law. It could be against morality by virtue of the opinion of some persons, a school of thought that I also belong to. But he has not gone against any law of the land, especially the Police Act 2020 that was amended.
Before I let you go, I'd like to also, from the point of morality anyway, get your opinion on the issue around appointments. So when we have a president who appoints the heads of the police force, the anti-corruption agencies, and some other sensitive agencies like that, how do we now have an effective system that upholds justice when we know that these people who have been appointed would somehow have to be the ones who would honor or work in favor of the person that has appointed him or her?
Well, I don't want to subscribe to working in favor. I would like to say work in tandem. I would like to use that word. In tandem. For somebody contesting the office of the president, you have an agenda. Perhaps security is part of your agenda. You must be able to work with people as long as the Constitution permits you to work with people who you believe can work with your vision. Not favor this time around. Not favor. Every civil servant or public office holder should work in loyalty to the nation and by extension, the holder of the most superior office and highest office in the land, in this case.
But that favor could be, sir, that favor could be benefits of course, the president, but then to the detriment of the people. Is one of the things that the activist Omoyele Sowore mentioned, and some people have also mentioned that, you know, he who pays the piper dictates the tune. So if whatever rule that is being handed down to those who have been appointed favors them, and then is to the detriment of the people, then it still holds waters because it's what the Constitution says.
You see, it's rather unfortunate. But like I said, that's the law. So what we should be working towards now is an agitation for a constitution amendment as far as that matter is concerned, where we can now start talking about the fact that for such sensitive offices, people who are going to be helmsmen has to be by promotion. But again, if there are 4 BIGs and somebody is to be promoted, what will be the criteria to promote one over the other? So they're going to create another confusion within the system of the organization. So it's rather unfortunate that our laws in Nigeria have not grown bigger than some men. But in places where it has worked, it is because the people have decided, irrespective of whatever office you hold, whether you are president, you are governor, the law is above you. If the law is above whoever is appointed into office, and there are ethics and norms, and this constitution guiding the operations of such office, whoever is appointed will have to respect the constitution and respect the office.
All right.
Even when the president has not appointed one, if you have an IG that will misbehave, you will misbehave. And the president is at liberty to fire because it's an appointment.
All right, Mr. Oluwole Oladapo. Mr. Oluwole Oladapo, Executive Director, Transparency and Accountability Network, thank you so much for your thoughts on the news.
It's my pleasure.
In a related development, the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Ola Olukoyede, says underdevelopment would be a thing of the past if every citizen sees corruption as the common enemy. Olukoyede said Nigerians condemn corruption, yet rally behind corrupt leaders when they are being prosecuted. He said this while receiving officials of the Center for Crisis Communication, led by Chris Olukolade in Abuja. He stated that the EFCC will partner to raise public awareness on its activities and the importance of integrity among Nigerians. Away from that, women contribute significantly beyond the roles traditionally assigned to them by society and thus need mental and financial support. Against this background, limited access to resources and inadequate skill infrastructure continue to hinder their progress, posing a major challenge. This prompts a diaspora group involving women in progress and communities development that believes the trend should change.
Empowered, society thrive, economies grow, and the world becomes a better place for all. Empowering women is not just about providing resources or opportunities. It is about recognizing their inherent worth, nurturing their potential, and creating an environment where they can dream, achieve, and lead, from education to entrepreneurship.
Any woman that needs support when you are out there, look for someone to look up to. You need to get a mentor, someone that can hold your hand. Don't be shy. Don't close your mouth. A closed mouth is a closed destiny. So it's better you open up and say exactly what it is. There must be somebody somewhere that will help you in whatever you're passing through, that will be able to help you.
This machine will help so many, especially women. It will help us, at least we don't depend, we won't be a liability to our husband, we won't be a liability to our family, at least. And we need more of this in our community, we need more of this in our state. We employ the NGOs, the state governor to help us.
This fashion designer is the only work that I learn. And if you learn work and you are proud of your work, no matter what, in this Nigeria, if you are proud of your handwork, you will succeed on it. You won't be broke.
Coming up on the news, landslide claims at least 12 lives, with many others missing at Mali gold mine. We'll bring you details of this and other stories in a short while. Don't go away. And so we continue in West Africa, where a landslide at a gold mine in southern Mali has claimed the lives of at least 12 people, with many others still missing, most of them women. Mali, one of Africa's leading gold producers, remains among the world's poorest nations. Fatal landslides are common at gold mining sites as authorities struggle to regulate the artisanal mining of the precious metal. The latest tragedy occurred in the village of Danga, where a landslide trapped a group of miners, the majority of whom were women.
Danga duru kugoya wolonfla. Tino de be baraka yoron nako. Unana anu ukumana am partenaire kumana ko. Ay yoro dama. Ay bara damne. Donc muso ya layini ka erifla di u fana mako. Utu mason. Mais en fana anyu wajibia u ka son. Parce que yan sigilende do ma. Donc erifla o de be muso bolo 6h 8h. Ni problème bena. Ni tchew do lu de mamarla do lu ba don. Mais na bi na muso taye. Muso ta don. So ni de mamena ni tchew do aba don afin do be kana kwa. Amba fenga me muso to don. Parce que lu te jigi de mangono ni pin na nyona te muso te jigi de mangono tchew de be jigi.
In Central Africa, Burundi's President Evariste Ndayishimiye says the conflict in eastern DR Congo risks escalating into a broader regional war, as Africa's top health agency warned the fighting could spark new outbreaks of serious diseases. The Rwanda-backed armed group M23 has vowed to march on the capital, Kinshasa, after capturing the eastern DR Congo's biggest city of Goma earlier this week. After taking Goma, the group is now pushing south into the neighboring South Kivu province, as the United Nations warns the escalating conflict has killed at least 700 people in less than a week. Burundi's president said the ongoing crisis is not only a threat to his country, but the entire East African region.
communauté internationale ne voit pas les conséquences. Je vous dis que si ça continue comme ça, la guerre risque d'être généralisée dans la région. Parce que le peuple ne peut pas se laisser faire. Si le Rwanda continue à faire des conquêtes dans le territoire et dans notre pays, je sais qu'il va arriver même au Burundi. Parce qu'il est en train d'entretenir des jeunes réfugiés. Il a des armes. Maintenant, il est en train de les aguerrir dans la guerre du Congo. Un jour, il veut venir au Burundi. Nous n'allons pas accepter, la guerre sera généralisée. Nous avons une menace dans la région. Ce n'est pas le Burundi seulement. La Tanzanie, l'Ouganda, le Kenya, c'est à toute la région, c'est une menace. Si l'Est du Congo n'a pas la paix, la région n'a pas.
Let's take it to Southern Africa, where the European Union's chief election observer, Laura Ballerin-Siriza, has described electoral reform as crucial in Mozambique. Her comments follow the country's recent presidential and parliamentary elections, as she expresses hope that EU missions will help Mozambicans regain confidence in public institutions. European Union observers strongly criticized Mozambique's highly contested October election in their final report, released on Thursday. The report highlighted allegations of result manipulation and indications of ballot box stuffing in favor of the ruling Frelimo party. The EU Election Observation Mission's final report detailed several irregularities in the electoral process.
Não valida ou invalida os resultados. Nós focamos sobretudo no processo eleitoral como a metodologia testada e então vamos focalizar nisto. Enquanto às redes sociais e TikTok, não temos informação sobre o nível, se houve favorecimento para candidato ou não por parte da plataforma. Nós analisamos sobretudo que presença tiveram os candidatos nas redes sociais e o que impacto tive como seguidores que tem cada dos candidatos. Saudamos que o Conselho de Estado e todas as forças políticas, incluindo o Presidente da República, já tenham reconhecido o papel crucial de uma futura reforma eleitoral. Dito isto, quero reiterar a vontade da nossa missão que o relatório sirva como instrumento de apoio e acompanhamento a esta reforma tão necessária que permita devolver aos moçambicanos a confiança nas instituições públicas.
Still ahead on the news. Jubilation as released Palestinian prisoners arrive Ramallah. Details of this and the rest of the stories will come your way in a bit. Stay with us. Outside of the African continent, we tell you that debris litter the streets in southern Ukraine's Odessa after a Russian attack on the city's historic center injured at least 2 people. Russia said on Saturday it had captured a village flanking the eastern flashpoint city of Toretsk in Ukraine, while Kiev said 8 people had died in Russian attacks overnight. The Russian Defense Ministry said its troops seized the village of Krymisk in the northeastern suburbs of Toretsk, which is located in the eastern Donetsk region and has been the scene of intense fighting in recent months. The Russian army is slowly but steadily advancing in Donetsk despite heavy human and material losses. Away from that, 7 people are said to have died, including one in a car on the ground after a twin-engine Medivac jet carrying. We also tell you that families of released Palestinian prisoners cheer as they hug and kiss their relatives in West Bank's Ramallah after Hamas and Israel completed the 4th hostage prisoner swap. More than 100 Palestinian prisoners have been freed from Israel's Ofar prison after a delay. They arrived into Ramallah in the occupied West Bank by bus and were met by a huge crowd who gathered to welcome the release. One of the released Palestinian prisoners mentioned that his 2 sons were born from sperm smuggled out from Israeli prison.
هم كانوا الرئة اللي بتنفس منها من خلف القضبان من بين الجدران الرطبة اللي نخرط رطوبتها بعظامنا، ولكن هذول النطف هم بإذن الله الحلم القادم والمستقبل للأجيال.
شكرا لكل أهل غزة ولكل من ساهم في هذه الإنجاز، لبنان والعراق وسوريا وإيران واليمن. يوم الأربعاء احنا دخلنا عوفر، تم الاعتداء علينا بممارسات عنيفة. نعم، من وحدة الكاتر الموجودة داخل السجن.
يعني شعور لا يوصف أكيد، وأكيد شعور مختلط ما بين الحزن وما بين الفرح، لأن تركنا لنا أخوان في الأسر يتعرضون للقتل والتعذيب والتجويع والترهيب والتنكيل. يعني ما تتعرض له الحركة الأسيرة داخل السجون الإسرائيلية لا يقل عن ما يتعرض له الشعب الفلسطيني من إبادة خارج السجون الإسرائيلية في الضفة الغربية وفي قطاع غزة على وجه الخصوص.
India's finance minister has unveiled broad income tax cuts as Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government looks to bolster consumption and perk up a slowing economy. The world's most populous country is forecast to expand at its lowest pace since the COVID pandemic in the current fiscal year, after growing at more than 8% last year. The finance minister said that individuals earning an annual income of up to 1.2 million rupees, that's about $13,800, would now be effectively exempt from paying income tax.
The middle class provides strength for India's growth. This government, under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, has always believed in the admirable energy and ability of the middle class in nation building. We have periodically reduced their tax burden. Right after 2014, the nil tax slab was raised to 2.5 lakhs of rupees, which was further raised to 5 lakh rupees in 2019 and to 7 lakh rupees in 2023. This is reflective of our government's trust on the middle class taxpayers. I am now happy to announce that there will be no income tax payable up to income of 12 lakh rupees.
In sports, the Confederation of African Football has announced the schedule for the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco, confirming 6 host cities and 9 venues for the prestigious tournament. The opening match on December 21, 2025 will feature hosts Morocco against Comoros at the newly built Complex Sportif Prince Moulay Abdallah in Rabat. Matches will take place across Rabat, Casablanca, Agadir, Marrakesh, Fez, and Tangier, with 52 games over 29 days. Key fixtures include the quarterfinals in Rabat, Tangier, Marrakesh, and Agadir, where the semi-finals will be held in Rabat and Tangier. The final is scheduled for January 18, 2026 in Rabat. This marks Morocco's first AFCON hosting since 1988. We turn our attention to the Premier League to tell you that Nottingham Forest reignited their Champions League hopes with a stunning 7-0 victory over Brighton at the City Ground. Chris Wood's hat-trick led the charge, while Morgan Gibbs-White, Nico Williams and Jota Silva also found the net. The rout followed a tough 5-0 loss to Bournemouth, showing a remarkable bounce-back performance. The win moves Forest level on points with second-placed Arsenal and extends their lead over 6th-place Chelsea by 7 points. With 5 Champions League spots likely available, Forest's impressive run with 10 wins in their last 12 matches puts them on track to qualify for Europe for the first time since 1996. This result also marks the second time in Premier League history a team has responded to a 5-goal-plus loss with a similar margin win. And that's all at this hour. But before we go, we look at our top stories again. Telecoms Workers Union have rejected NLC's planned protest over 50% tariff hike. Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms has said the proposed bill will curb inflation. We also told you that mine collapse has killed at least 12 people, while several others are missing in Mali. Don't forget, you can watch News Central live on DSTV, channel 422, Star Times, channel 274, Apple TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Lekon Omabanjo.